Once again to 5:50 p.m. Welcome to our evening transmission. This is Delhi. Please stand by for our next program.
This is All India Radio. You will now hear comments from the press. The Indian Express, in its editorial titled Trumping Trump, says Donald Trump has become the third US president to be impeached by the House of Representatives, and like them, in all likelihood, he will be acquitted in the Senate. The House, controlled by the Democrats, voted for his impeachment on 2 articles. The first article relates to the abuse of power by putting pressure on the Ukrainian president by refusing to meet him and release military aid unless he began an inquiry against Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden's son's business interests in that country. The second relates to obstructing the work of Congress, with Trump charged for threatening witnesses in the congressional inquiry into the abuse of power. The House expectedly voted along party lines, and so will the Republican-controlled Senate. This was well known before the process began. The Republican leader in the Senate had made it clear that he would do everything in his power to acquit the president. The Democratic argument for going ahead with a process that would be futile has been that Trump's transgressions are so egregious that an impeachment by the House was necessary in order to uphold the U.S. Constitution. Now, in anticipation of the defeat in the Senate, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has decided to delay the inevitable by not sending the articles to the Senate, thus leaving Trump in the limbo of an inconclusive impeachment. If all this seems somewhat familiar to Indians, it is because the U.S. is about as bitterly polarized between Republicans and Democrats over the Trump presidency as India is between Hindutva and non-Hindutva politics in the Narendra Modi regime. Pelosi's determination to have Trump impeached in the House in the name of the Constitution, but plays a hold on sending it to the Senate, smacks of a kind of short-sighted politics that also plagues the opposition in this country. It backfires and provides the intended target the opportunity to play victim. Trump and his supporters will make much of the denial of the opportunity to defend himself immediately. Plus, with his candidature for a second term on course, he has about a year of campaign meetings in which to unleash his defense in the ways he does and consolidate his Republican base. 2020 is going to be a bitter year in US politics. India will recognize its own reflection in some parts of it. The Times of India, in its editorial titled Dear Santa, says, is a season to be jolly and put together those Christmas wish lists, irrespective of whether one believes in a benevolent soul living in North Pole. Dil to mangta hai ji. For example, for cricket aficionados, it was heartbreak when Team India fell in the penultimate hurdle in this year's ODI World Cup. They would certainly be wishing that Virat Kohli and the boys go all the way next year's T20 World Cup in Australia. And if Santa is feeling really generous, he may also want to throw in at least 5 medals for India at the Tokyo Olympics. Please let one of those be gold. Meanwhile, onions and tears are no strangers, but the bulb has been really making us cry in recent days. Pegging onions back at rupees 20 a kilo will be a great gift for Aam Aurat and Admi. What would truly give us all joy, though, would be our netas shedding the VIP mindset and empathizing with us cattle class. BJP's Bhopal MP Pragya Singh Thakur recently made us depressed. Clinical depression cases are rising in India anyway by throwing a tantrum over sitting on a domestic flight. Mantrijis need to become Sevakjis. On the economic front, a real miracle would be the country returning to double-digit growth. We read in the history books that the last time that happened was in 1988-89. A rewind on the score would be like the star atop a Christmas tree. It will take a miracle to end pollution or restore women's safety. What's desired is a superheroic effort to clean the muck. The Avengers character Black Panther comes to mind, whose advanced technology could help fight pollution and improve policing. Is Santa listening? The Indian Express, in its editorial titled Free Verse, writes, how do you name the nameless with poetry? It gives courage in the face of nameless dread and rallies hearts and minds against the violent might of the governments. I am the people, the mob, the crowd, the mass, wrote Carl Sandburg, reversing the power differential and pointing out that Napoleons and Lincolns are born among the people. How do you keep movements going when they flag in the face of insufferable odds? Poetry helps in lightning rod for dissatisfaction and anger that touches everyone and ignites whatever it touches. In India, the movement against the Citizenship Amendment Act and the application of the National Register of Citizens nationwide has raised a fresh crop of protest poetry, mostly from younger voices like Amir Aziz, Varun Grover and Sabika Abbas Naqvi. In Assam, which encountered the NRC first, it had re-energized Mia poetry, a tradition almost as old as India, which expresses the ends of immigrants from across the eastern border. Now, in the span of 1 week, protest poetry has become a national phenomenon. Among with new work, old favorites like Rahat Indori, Bashir Badr and Ram Prasad Bismil are thundering forth from loudspeakers. And interestingly, classics from Pakistan Pakistan have been received by crowds at least as well as domestic poems. Absolute power need only fear subversion, whose sharpest weapons are poetry and humor. Both have risen to the occasion. It is unlikely that the protests will come to nothing, since movements powered by public anger and without a central command which can be conveniently decapitated are notoriously hard to put down. But even if it cannot secure the repeal of the problematic act,